go live on the YouTube end. That's right.
Right, I think we're live now.
But just wait till it's. I've definitely got a feed in.
Okay. Apologies
Just
for
one
that.
second. Sorry, Chair. Just 1 second. Right, Chair, sorry about that, but we are up and running now, so if you'd like to continue, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Alison. Apologies to everyone for obviously that break in the meeting, but hopefully now the outside world can see what's going on in these proceedings. Right, so the place where we got to, we'd obviously done introductions. What I want to do now is just ask the licensing manager to confirm firstly that all interested parties have been notified of the hearing.
Yes, Chair, I can confirm that's place, and you've got the DPS and a representative listening in the meeting. So I've received acceptance of the meeting and everybody's present.
Okay, thank you very much. So we're okay to proceed. What I want to do now is just run through how this hearing will be conducted, and hopefully then that's clear to everybody. Firstly, I will ask the licensing officer to present the report. Following that, each party present in turn will make their representation, starting with the trading standards and the police, and then the licence holder. When the trading standards and police have given their representation, I will then ask each party in turn if they have any questions at that point. The committee members will then be asked by myself if they have any questions. Following that, the licence holder will obviously then go through the same process of making their representation, which will be followed by any questions from any party and then any questions from any of the members of the committee. When all the representations have been made and the questioning has finished, each party, in the same order, has the opportunity to sum up their case. You can't introduce any new evidence at that stage or any new issues. It's purely a summary at that point in the proceedings. And at the end of the summing up, the committee will then retire into a private session to make its decision, and then we'll return to this meeting to make that known. Is that clear to everybody before we actually start?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So firstly, so if we start to go through that process, firstly, can I ask the licensing officer to present the report?
Yeah, good morning, Chair. Good morning, members of the committee. My name's John Lucas, licensing officer. I've previously circulated my written report. I will go through the highlighted bits of that. The purpose of the meeting today is to advise members of the requirement to determine an application for review under the Licensing Act 2003. The premises under question is Lyndhurst Road, Food and Booze, and that's 9 Lyndhurst Road in Burnley. Members are recommended to make a determination at the conclusion of the hearings under the regulations, and having considered all the relevant facts, the committee is empowered to take any of the following steps which are necessary to promote the licensing objectives. That's to modify the conditions of the licence, or to exclude a licensable activity from the scope of the licence, to remove the designated premises supervisor, to suspend the licence for a period not exceeding 3 months, or indeed to revoke the licence. And the committee is responsible for determining such applications. They've got the 4 licensing objectives, and they're the cornerstones that you must be considering when you're determining this application. The premises currently holds a premises licence, and I've attached that in the papers Appendix A. And the hold of the premises licence and also the designated premises supervisor is Sarah Hussain. She resides in Nelson, and she holds a personal licence which was granted by Pendle Borough Council. Now, on the Thursday, the 5th of March 2020, the Licensing Authority at Burnley received an application from Sam McConnell, Lancashire Trading Standards, to review this premises. The grounds for the application were that the licensing objectives relating to the protection of children from harm was not being observed. They are saying that Lancashire Trading Standards, that the premises failed the test purchase of alcohol and the current DPS of another premises in Pendle. And the current DPS is also the DPS of another premises in Pendle, which had its premises licence revoked very recently for a similar offence. The full review application submitted by Lancashire Trading Standards, again, was appended in the paperwork at Appendix B. The Licensing Authority received one other representation from the Lancashire Constabulary, and a copy of that is with the papers at Appendix C. I need to make the committee aware that the premises were subject to a review hearing held on the 12th of January 2012, and that was triggered by an application made by the Lancashire Constabulary. However, I must indicate that at that time the premises was trading as Pommies off licence and was under a different management with a different premises licence holder and a different DPS. So the determination notice in relation to the 2012 hearing again is attached for members' attention at Appendix D, and the additional conditions that were added to the premises licence as a result of that hearing were attached at Appendix E. There's a number of sections in Burnley Council's statement of licensing policy that I'm not going to go through in detail, but the relevant paragraphs that I've highlighted in the report are at paragraphs 1.3, 1.10, 3.23, 3.27, 3.28, 3.29, 7.7, 7.8, 9.1, 9.2, 9.3, 13.4, 13.5 and 14.1. And I've also got to remind panel members that consideration should be given to the Human Rights Act, in particular those rights afforded by a right to a fair hearing, protection of property, and a right for a private and family life. In terms of consultation, the statutory consultation has taken place, and as mentioned before, one representation has been received within this statutory period, and that's from Lancashire Constabulary. The only other documents I've referred to is Burnley Council's Statement of Licensing Policy. And that concludes my report, Chair.
Chair, your microphone's muted.
Apologies, can you hear me again now? Hopefully you can hear me now. So that was Mr. Klukas presenting the licensing report. I just want to go around participants to see if anybody has, that was all understood, or if there's anything that needs to be clarified from Mr. McConnell. Councillors first, Councillor Baker.
Nothing from Mr. Klukas.
No. Councillor Campbell.
Nothing from myself.
Okay, Mr. McConnell.
No, I'm fine, Chair, thank you.
Sergeant Hennigan.
Nothing, thank you.
Sarah Hussain. Sarah, can you hear us?
You may just need to unmute your microphone, Cassie.
Sarah Hussain, Cassie, can you hear me?
No, thank you.
Okay,
Hello?
thank you very much.
Hi. Sorry, can you hear me?
We got you now. I was just asking whether you had any points that needed clarification from what Mr. Klukas has said as part of presentation of his licensing report. Are you okay?
There is just something that we do want to say before it starts, because we're not really sure if it's going to change the dynamics of the meeting or not. So there is something that we need to say. The premises are currently in the process of being sold. They haven't as yet, but they are in the process of being sold. So we just wanted to let you know that before we go any further.
Okay, can I just take advice from an officer, legal?
Yep. Fine, yeah.
Please? Is Emma there?
Sorry, Chair, I was just finding the button to unmute my microphone.
Okay.
The premises are in the process of being sold, but in terms of this meeting, I don't think it changes anything, and we just need to make a determination based on the information we've got in front of us today.
Okay, thank you very much. I think that's clear. Thank you very much. Okay, so moving on now, it's for trading standards, the applicants to present to make their representation. Can you please go ahead, Mr. McConnell?
Yeah, thanks very much, Chair. The application for review is submitted by Lancashire County Council Trading Standards Service on the grounds that the licensing objective relating to the protection of children from harm is not being observed at Premier Food and Booze, 9 Lyndhurst Road in Burnley. The premises licence holder and the designated premises supervisor, as you've heard from Mr. Klukas, is Sarah Hussain, and we believe that Sarah has been both the premises licence holder and the designated premises supervisor since January 2017. Before 2017, there were a number of test purchases made at the premises. 2 test purchases of tobacco and 3 of alcohol, all of which there were refusals to sell. However, most recently, a test purchase was made in October 2019, which resulted in the sale of alcohol to a child aged 16 years of age. We have previously written to the premises to provide information and guidance on age-restricted products. One was pre-Sarah Hussain having her roles at the premises, the Check 25 resources, but one was in August 2017, and that was directing them to online material and advice in relation to the Check 25 policy and process, what conditions they could put in place as far as the training of staff, refusals book, etc. was concerned. It's also worth noting, and I think it has been mentioned by my colleague John Klukas there, is that Sarah Hussain is both the premises licence, or was both the premises licence holder and designated premises supervisor for another premises located in the district of Pendle. That was also failed a test purchase on the 19th of the same day in October that Lyndhurst Road Food and Booze also failed their test purchase. As a result, that premises was subject to, and the licence was revoked. And they had 2 complaints alleging underage sales made against them since March 2017. As previously outlined, all test purchases carried out by trading standards before 2017 were refused. After Sarah Hussain became the premises licence holder and designated premises supervisor, 2 operations have been conducted, 1 resulting in a sale of alcohol to a person under 18, 1 was refused. The committee is respectfully requested, to consider that the sale of alcohol at this premises, with the subsequent revocation of the licence at the Pendle premises and the connections between both the premises licence holder and both having the same premises licence holder and designated premises supervisor, is ineffective and shows a consistent poor practice in the responsibility of carrying out the licensing objectives. Given the information provided, we respectfully request that Burnley Licensing Committee consider revocation of the licence in this instance. Although it had only 1 occasion, we believe that with the consistency of the poor management of these premises, both the premises in Burnley and Pendle, that this would be a reasonable consideration panel to consider. The current license. Sorry, Alison.
Mr. McConnell, could you just repeat that? I think there's your broadband might be a little bit slow. If you try turning off the video, that might help. And if you just do it on audio.
Okay, is that any better? I've just turned the video off.
Much better.
Brilliant. So where do you want me to start from again, please?
From where you were requesting revocation.
Okay. Given the information provided, we respectfully request that Burnley Licensing Committee considers revocation of the licence in this instance in order to maintain consistency and to prevent the continuation of sales to children. If the committee does not feel a revocation of the current licence is the most appropriate action to take, we would ask that modification of the current licence to deter further sales of alcohol to persons under the age of 18 is an option for the committee to consider. Modifications that we have suggested to the committee have been made available, are available within the contents of this report. I don't intend to go through the number of test purchases that were carried out pre-2017, and we know that the post-2017 test purchases resulted in 1 failure and 1 refusal. But I do want to provide the panel with some relevant information regarding the protection of children from harm as far as licensing legislation and responsibilities of the PLH and the DPS in this process. This refers to paragraphs 11.27 and 11.28 of the revised guidance issued under section 182 of the Licensing Act 2003. There is certain criminal activity that may arise in connection with licensed premises that should be treated particularly seriously. These are the use of the licensed premises for the illegal purchase and consumption of alcohol by minors, which impacts on the health, educational attainment, employment prospects and propensity for crime for those young people. It is envisaged that licensing authorities, the police, the Home Office, immigration enforcement and other law enforcement agencies which are responsible authorities will use the review procedures effectively to deter such activities and crime. Where reviews arise and the licensing authority determines that the crime prevention objective is being undermined through the premises being used to further crimes, it is expected that revocation of the licence, even in the first instance, should be seriously considered. The options available to the committee this morning is do nothing. However, we feel that the seriousness of the offence causes grave concern for no action. Modify the conditions of the licence as I referred to previously, and which are contained in the narrative of this report. Remove the premises licence holder and the designated premises supervisor, an additional option we would ask the committee to consider. Suspend the licence for a period not exceeding 3 months. Revoke the premises licence so that no alcohol can be sold at all. This is another determination that the trading standards would ask the committee to consider in their deliberation. In the opinion of Lancashire County Council Trading Standards Service, the information presented in the application is clear evidence that the protection of children from harm licensing objective has been disregarded at these premises. Lancashire County Council Trading Standards respectfully request that the committee considers one of the two options that previously mentioned: to revoke the licence at 9 Lyndhurst Road, or, notwithstanding any other evidence being presented to the licensing panel by relevant authorities, Trading Standard was asked that the following modifications to licence be considered as a second option of disposal in this review. And then there's a list of the options and modifications that we would ask to be considered as an alternative to revocation in this matter. That's me concluding my presentation of the report, Chair. I'm obviously open to any questions.
Thank you very much for that report. Can I first of all take questions from the other parties? Are there any questions from Sarah Hussain?
It's Cassie here. I don't have any questions as such, but I just want to make it clear that since there was the failed test purchase, sorry, just before you go, this is a time for questions, and you're going to have your opportunity to make a full case. Right, okay then.
Unless there's something specific you need to ask Mr. McConnell, I think you have due opportunity to say everything.
Thank you.
Okay, I'll make sure that you do have due time to say everything that you want to. Yeah, okay. Can I now go to members of the committee? Councillor Baker, have you got any questions?
No questions.
Councillor Campbell?
No questions.
Thank you very much. I'm going to now proceed to Sergeant Gary Hennigan, if he could give his representations, please, now in terms of this hearing. Thank you.
Yeah, good morning. Before I carry on, Alison, would you prefer me to turn my camera off or keep it on while I'm presenting?
Sorry, I was muted. You can leave it on unless there are any issues with the sound coming through, and then I'll ask you to turn it off.
No problem. Okay then. Well, thank you for taking the time out to hear my representation today. We support the review application that's been submitted by Trading Standards, as we have concerns that the prevention of children from harm licensing objective has been undermined. In addition, the police find that the licensing objectives are being seriously undermined, as they cannot abide by the conditions on their licence following repeat licensing visits. The premises licence holder and DPS is Sarah Hussain. This has been the case since January 2017. And it's my belief that she is completely neglectful in her duties in relation to the sale of alcohol. We have already heard that Hussain's other store in Colne had its licence revoked recently. At that hearing, Hussain didn't turn up, leaving it in the hands of a female called Jenna Rigby. The licence at 9 Lyndhurst Road has some extremely stringent conditions, which were imposed on the 12th of January 2012, following a failed test purchase in late 2011 due to the concerns at the store. Just to summarise, 1, the store will operate a Challenge 25 policy. 2, Challenge 25 posters will be displayed prominently. 3, all staff selling alcohol will have a personal licence. 4, all staff will receive quarterly refresher training. The training will be documented and made available to the authorities upon request. 5, an incident and refusal register will be maintained at the store. And 6, till prompts will be installed on the till system to alert staff members to an alcohol sale, reminding them to check for ID. Personally, I've been concerned about this premises since May 2019. This was following a visit from police licensing staff volunteer David Pill, who reported some breaches of the licence conditions. Key points being that Mr. Etisham Sajjad was working, and he's been a sales assistant for 2 years. Now, he hasn't got a personal licence, despite the fact he's been working there for 2 years. No refusal or challenge documentation. The Challenge 25 policy was unclear. No staff training was documented. A till prompt system was active, which was for 18 plus, which doesn't support the Challenge 25 policy. Also, there were no posters at the point of sale. Mr. Sajjad said that the business had 2 employees, which were supervised by Sarah Hussain. An information and poster pack was left with Mr. Sajjad at the time. So on the 4th of October 2019 at 20:50 hours, a joint test purchase operation was carried out at the store between trading standards and police. This was conducted following a report made on the 3rd of October, where an anonymous caller reported that the store is selling alcohol to minors. She states that she saw a 10-year-old passport and served with a vodka slush puppy on Monday night at 8 p.m. The informant also reported that a 15-year-old who is related to her bought vodka from a shop on a regular basis, and that the male in the shop sells alcohol to children all the time. So the shop failed the test purchase as the 16-year-old volunteer bought 2 cans of alcohol without any challenge from the shop assistant. The DPS was not present at the time of sale. Again, this seller was Mr. Sajjad, who was the male present at a previous visit. Sajjad's grasp of English was mediocre, and his knowledge of licensing issues were low. There was a complete breach of license as per last visit. Dave Pill left advice, posters, and a training package, like I said, all of which were ignored, and posters weren't even put up. In fact, the pack that had been left was clearly just been discarded, and he managed to pull it out untouched from under a bundle of mail. As per conditions following previous hearing, there was no challenge 25 evidence, no posters displayed, staff member had still not been on a personal licence course, no quarterly training could be evidenced, no refusals, incidents registered, a till prompt was active, a challenge 18, not challenge 25, but it was ignored as the sale was made, rendering it pointless. A slush puppy machine was empty on the counter, but there were small bottles of vodka nearby. Sajjad said that some customers mixed these into the slushies as per previous intelligence. A few days later, I briefly spoke with Hussain a few days on the phone and raised my concerns. However, I got the impression that she seemed disinterested in what I had to say about failed test purchase and repeated breaches of conditions. After this test purchase, 2 more licensing visits were conducted. The first by PC Jones, who works for the licence department at the police, and John Clucas, who is the licensing officer at Burnley. This was on the 14th of November at 1:30 in the afternoon. So there was a shop assistant who gave his details of Mohammed Umar, who said he had worked there since the 4th of November. Again, he didn't have a personal licence and didn't have any external training. Till prompt was working, and Mohammed stated that he accepted a driving licence and passport as ID. A refusal register, which appeared to be an A4 pad, was produced, with the last entry being 12th of November 2019. The check 25 posters were produced from under the counter, only with 2 posters were displayed, both below waist height, one at the counter and one at the other end of the counter, but not prominent as per condition. No documented staff training could be produced again. The slush puppy machine was covered up and not currently used. Mohammed stated that the boss was Imran Khan. He said that Mr. Khan comes every couple of days. I have no idea who this Mr. Khan is, but he's clearly not the DPS or the licence holder. CCTV was working, but the clock on the system was 20 minutes past. Then a revisit was carried out by volunteer David Pill on the 29th of January this year. Staff present was a male called Nazakat Khan, who described himself as a friend. He told David that he had a personal licence. However, checks at the 6 local authorities in East Division showed him not to have one at any of these. Although they said there was an electronic pills refusal, David was unable to check this log at the time. Perhaps this was a lack of knowledge from staff. Repeatedly, the till prompt is simply challenge 18, when one of the conditions is to operate a challenge 25 policy. Again, the store was sketchy with posters, these posters being at the point of sale. So since the store has been under the watch of Hussain, there have been a number of issues as follows. On the 5th of January 2017, CCTV footage had been requested from the store at least 6 times, but nobody was on it. Nobody was able to operate the system. The shopkeeper stated that since the change of DPS to Hussain, they weren't bothered before, and the present one isn't too. This visit was made by PC Strug. On the 6th of January 2017, my predecessor, Sergeant Jason Middleton, visited at 9:30 and spoke to someone called Amir, who said that Sarah Hussain was the new owner, but the day-to-day running would be done by somebody called Rocker. Staff member had no idea how to download CCTV footage despite it being a licence condition. And on the 12th of January 2017, Sergeant Middleton visited with John Yardley from Burnley Council as the licence was suspended due to non-payment. Although Sarah Hussain has been the DPS and licence holder since 2017, it's my belief that her and her associates have been involved with the running of this shop for much longer. I mentioned before that at the recent hearing at Pendle for Hussain's other store, a female called Jenna Rigby attended this on behalf of Hussain. According to our system, Rigby was involved with this store at 9 Lyndhurst Road in 2012. At this point, Rigby was working at a store and had no idea that all staff needed to have a personal licence. And according to our records, Rigby at some point was the licence holder and DPS for a period of time in 2012. But I'm going to be blunt now. Jenna Rigby is a partner of Shamraz Ansar. The Ansar family is linked to a number of off-licences in the Burnley and Pendle area. The Ansar family has been involved in a range of criminality over the years. This is nothing secret or privileged. This can be read in the local media. Apart from Knott's Lane, another of their stores, Lifestyle Express on Anglesey Avenue in Burnley, was taken to a review hearing in January 2018 for underage sales and illicit tobacco. We have also had issues at another of the Ansar stores recently, which is Premier at Cog Lane in Burnley. David Pill, who is a licensing volunteer, so provides his services for free, carried out a licensing inspection last year and staff intimidated him. This incident included one of the Ansar family being aggressive and barring his exit from the store, completely inappropriate behaviour. This is combined with police having issues in obtaining CCTV at this store. I may be mistaken, but I've been informed that Cassie Edmondson is present at this hearing as she is being put forward as the new DPS after recently obtaining a personal licence. Cassie is a long-time friend of Rigby. I don't know if she's still with him, but she's been a partner of a male called Rockab Afsal, aka Rocker or Rocky, another associate of the Ansar clan. I mentioned earlier as one of the visits that Rocker was involved with this store at 9 Lyndhurst Road in 2017, when staff members said he would be doing the day-to-day running. Rocker is also linked to the ownership of Knott's Lane Colne. So I believe that this store at Lyndhurst Road is clearly linked to the Ansars. If this licence isn't revoked, I believe we're going to encounter the same issues being experienced at this store and others, as we just seem to keep going around in circles in who is actually responsible for the running of this premises. Even staff members of various stores seem to be confused about who's running the shops. Enough is enough as far as this family network goes. I have my doubts of the validity of Sarah Hussain in the running of a shop and believe she may just be a stooge. It's clear that various parts of this group simply want to keep hold of their empire. It's clear for some years there has been no consideration of serious attempts to abide by their licensing conditions. Although they are stringent, they are not difficult to enforce in any way. In my opinion, the information I've presented indicates a total undermining of the licensing objectives. There's been a failed test purchase and DPS PLH does not appear to have any care around their responsibility to sell alcohol. Given the links to the Ansar family, I don't feel that the appointment of the proposed DPS, if it's the case, will solve anything, and the lax practices shown already will continue, as it has since 2011. There are constant blatant breaches of conditions, and I'm not sure that adding any more conditions is going to remedy the issue. Even if the premises is being sold and we get to hear from the representatives, it doesn't make a difference if a licence is revoked, as a new buyer can apply for a new licence and those due diligence checks can be made. I'm respectfully requesting that the committee considers whether revocation of the premises licence is proportionate here. And thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much, Sergeant Hennigan. Now is the opportunity again where we can ask the sergeants any questions that may have. I'm going to start with the other parties first. Cassie and Sarah, do you have any questions for the sergeants at this stage?
No questions from me, thank you.
Thank you. I'll go to the councillors then in turn. Councillor Baker, any questions?
No questions at this stage, thank you, from the police, or will be in future either. Thank you.
Councillor Campbell, any questions?
No questions, thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, now to move on to the representations of the licensee. I'm assuming, Cassie, that you're going to make this representation. So if that's the case, over to yourself.
Yep, I just wanted to say a few things that since the failed test purchase at Lyndhurst Road in October, I believe it was, there's 2 people that have gone on to do the licensing matters course, and certain things have been put in place, and there's now a register where they will write down anybody that's coming and they've refused to serve them. There is the thing on the till, but we will get that checked again to make sure it says to be over 25 and not 18. And also there's for Sarah, she's got 3 children, and obviously since all this has come to light, she's decided that she can't do it anymore and that she's selling up, basically.
Okay, is that the representation?
That's everything I want to say. Thank you.
Okay.
And obviously that the premises are in the process of being sold.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Can I take questions from the other parties first? Mr McConnell, as the applicant, have you any questions for the licensee?
No questions, Chair, thank you.
Sergeant Hennigan, any questions?
Yeah, I've got a couple of questions. Are you able to say who it's being sold to, or is that confidential at this time?
Sorry?
Are you able to say who it's being sold to, or is it confidential at this time?
It's confidential at this time, but we will let you know in due course if that's okay.
And my second question, you obviously made a very short representation about things being put in place.
Sorry?
In your representation, you've made reference to a couple of staff being put on personal licence and things being improved.
Yeah, they've been on the licensing matters course.
My question would be not to yourself, but to Sarah Hussain. Why were these not done sooner when it's been part of the condition? Why is it taken to get to a route to do this?
I'll be 100% honest with you. When I was originally took over the shop, I wasn't, by the previous owners, be made fully aware of the full licenses. Obviously, we had our first purchase, and then it's been in our mind since then. Nazaka, it says, hasn't been on the course. He has been on a course. I don't know why it couldn't be found. He has been on his course. And obviously afterwards, once the staff have been on the course, the second test purchase was refused. There is a challenge 25. I hold my hand up. I have 3 little children. Yes, I took it over thinking I could do it. But with all the problems that are coming to light, I've decided, especially with the current circumstances and everything going on, that my family is more important and I need to give them time. I thought if the staff were trained, they would do a smooth running of the shop if I was just overseeing things. But that's obviously come to light that that's not the case. The shop is in process of being sold. It probably would have taken over fully by now, but due to the coronavirus, obviously there's delays everywhere. We are just waiting for the CBR DBS check to come through so they can get the license changed over. Yes, like the police officer said, that the sergeant, they can reapply for their own license. But I just wanted to try to keep the license for them so they could just change the name and continue running the shop the way it should be run without having a stop of selling alcohol in the interim period. Thank you.
Thank you for that. I've no more questions.
Thank you, Sergeant. Members, Councillor Baker, any questions?
Yes, several, I'm afraid. Can I ask the lady, how often do you visit the shop? That's the licence holder. When did you last view the incidents register? Do you record these inspections of the register in a diary or formal system? When visiting the premises, do you check the Check 25 posters are visible at the entrance where alcohol is presented for sale and at the point of sale? Do you record these checks? Do you check that the sales staff responsible for the sale of alcohol or tobacco are personal licence holders rather than just been on a course. Do you record these checks? And it's a condition of the licence that all staff receive quarterly refresher training. Where do you keep records of sales training? I can repeat them in individual ones if you require them.
Yes, please. Can you repeat them?
Right. How often do you visit the shop?
Well, obviously, because Sarah's got 3 children, this is why she's decided to sell up, because everything's becoming too much. Things are getting on top of her. So not very much.
Well, how often?
Since this has all come to light, though, she has been more often.
Yeah, how often since 2017 then? I mean, I don't know how old the children are, so I don't know whether they were born then or what. That's all.
What, mate? Every couple of weeks. Every couple of weeks.
Okay, so every 2 weeks she goes. So when she visited, then when did she last view the incidents register for the shop? When they refused, if you will.
That's only the internet register. They've only just got the register recently. Is that right? 2019.
So what was happening between 2017? Was they not recording refusals? Was she not recording them?
No.
Okay. When she visits every couple of weeks, does she check that check 25 posters are visible at those points I mentioned? The entrance, alcohol presented for sale, and at the point of sale.
You don't know. No, she doesn't know where they are.
Okay, so she doesn't record if you're something up there. Does she check that the sales staff are personal licence holders on a visit?
This is where the wires got crossed, isn't it? Do you check that the staff are personal licence holders?
Yeah, this is where it's crossed. That's what I'm saying.
This is where the wires have got crossed, because she wasn't fully aware that every single member of staff had to be a personal licence holder. She thought it was just the licensing matters course that they had to do. That's only just come to light recently.
To be honest, I can appreciate that, because that comes up in the conditions attached.
Yeah.
But obviously in the mandatory conditions, it says every supply of alcohol under the premises licence here and at any other premises she's responsible for must be made or authorised by a person who holds a personal licence. So that's part of the mandatory conditions going back to 2003. So she should have been aware from there on any course that she did, I would have thought. But anyway, end of my questions, Chair.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Campbell, any questions?
No questions, thank you. I think Councillor Baker's covered them all.
Okay, thank you. I've just got one follow-up question to ask. In terms of your experience and history in this industry as running off licences, how long has Sarah been involved, either as a licensee, an owner, or associated with off licences?
She's just nipped to the toilet. I'm sorry. Can you just give her a second to come back?
Okay, have you got the question, or will I need to repeat it?
You can repeat it for her when you come back if you like.
Okay.
Hi, sorry, I'm back.
Oh, hi, Sarah. Thank you. I just had a question in terms of like your history and association with off licenses generally. How long does that go back to when? When did you start as a licensee, an owner, or working in them? How long?
I started as a license holder about just over 6 years ago, but I was just had one child then, and I had my mum for a lot of sports, so it was easy. So I thought I would be okay with it, but as time's gone on, there's been health deteriorations in the family, which has put more restrictions on my childcare.
Okay, and prior to being a license holder, did you have any associations with working in, around off licenses prior to that?
No, I didn't, sorry. It was just the hype at the time that the off licenses, and I just wanted to have a stability for the future. But obviously it's come to a point where I've realised until I can't give my own 100% time there, I'm not going to be able to use that as stability for the future. So I'm going to have to think of something else.
Okay, and just in terms of going back to what the sergeant said in terms of relationships perhaps with other off-licence owners, have you associated with any of the families or names that the sergeant actually raised in his submission?
What do you mean associated with or related to?
Well, he mentioned the Ansar family and their history in off-licences. Are you an associate, closely associated with? Just to give you a chance to basically respond to what the sergeant said.
I'm not an associate as such, the way the sergeant was saying, but yes, we are related.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Now, we've had submissions from all the parties and we've had questions to all the parties. So at the point now of summing up, so this is not an opportunity to bring in any extra issues or evidence. It is purely summing up. So can I go to, firstly, the applicant, Mr. McConnell, to give us his summing up?
Yes, Chair. I think, as I previously stated, it was just one test purchase, but I think the committee has got to look at the bigger picture in all of this. There is a history over, or since 2017 at least, at the premises of poor management, ignoring licensing conditions, staff being in a position where they've not been trained appropriately, and one can only assume that although there was only one failed test purchase, that this was not the only time that young people were able to access or purchase alcohol at this premises. I think having a license, it's not a right. It's got to be worked at, and people have got to comply with the conditions that are associated with maintaining or having that license to sell alcohol. And I think in this case, well, no, I don't think I know in this case that that's not been proven by there's a scant disregard for licensing objectives, in particular the protecting children from harm. Thank you.
Thank you. Sergeant Hennigan, would you like to sum up?
Yeah, time and time again, we see actions too little, too late. They've said that things have been put in place, but my question is, why weren't these put in place previously? The fact that Sarah says she didn't know the conditions, I find absolutely ridiculous. Licence conditions are paramount, and it is not difficult to obtain from a local authority, and you should know these like the back of your hand. She's been on a personal licence course, so should know how it works. And for me, visiting every 2 weeks as the DPS is not the day-to-day running of a venue. And we've seen very little mitigation from the licence holder today or the representative. And again, it confirms my lack of confidence in the running of this store. You've heard my concerns, and I've expressed them about the running of this store and others. It's poor, and I still maintain that revocation of a licence for me would be the only way to solve this issue. Thank you.
Thank you. And finally, the licensee, Cassie, do you want to make the summing up on Sarah's behalf?
Only that obviously since the failed test purchase, which is what we've already said, things have changed. The premises are in the process of being sold. That's all we want to say, really. We don't have anything else to say, do we?
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. So now we're reaching the determination stage. So some subcommittee members are going to withdraw and consider their decision with the legal officer. So we will go into a private session to consider that. And if you can all stay on the meeting. So I will adjourn this meeting at this stage whilst we go away and consider our determination. Okay. we have everybody in place. So I'm just going to read out the decision of the committee. The premises licence numbered PLA 0224, granted under the Licensing Act 2003 in respect of Lyndhurst Road Food and Booze, 9 Lyndhurst Road, Burnley, is revoked, as the licensing objective of protection of children from harm has been undermined. There has been a disregard for the conditions on the premises licence. You'll be notified of the full decision in writing by post in the next few days, and you have 21 days from the written decision to lodge any appeal at the Magistrates' Court. That concludes the business of this hearing today, and I formally close the meeting, and I thank you all for participating in this meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.